What is up, DTube Steam blockchain? So today I want to talk about this aspect about technology, which is kind of interesting, and that is how technology makes it so one person can't really decide how big or small you are. So as a person. So technology basically levels the playing field. And especially now, it's very interesting with this new generation coming up, where with this new technology, you don't have to chase numbers anymore. You can just use proof of brain, and then one individual can't decide how big or small you are as a person. So it's very interesting because we're coming up here with a digital generation of people, which are more, let's say, global citizens. They have a more global perspective of things. They have a larger understanding of language and and they are more aware of, let's say, their ignorance, and that they don't really know that much. Compared to in the real world, there's a lot of people that are very confident and prideful in their ignorance. So it's really interesting, right? Especially now with blockchain technology, where a lot of people are realizing, oh, I can just be myself, I can just be a human being, and it's all right. Compared to, and then maybe you go back to talk to people in the physical space, and they're still sort of in this old mindset that, yeah, you can belittle a person, you can sort of talk to them almost as it's not a human being, you can try to you can just dissect them, you can belittle them, and I mean, all of these, let's say, power games, like you start to become really, let's say, aware of all these power games that people are using on each other. And this is obviously something that people have been trying also to do on the internet, where people are sort of having also sorts of psychopath behavior and all of this stuff, and they sort of try to manipulate people. But eventually people are starting to realize, well, you can sort of use video, and then people actually can see a person, and it's just better. So all these power games, and one big thing is that you don't have life without involvement. So a thing that's kind of interesting here is that you need involvement, right? And when you are, let's say, when you're taking in a lot of concepts, and when you sort of are dedicated to follow different people, and sort of when you see them on video, you can during a longer time sort of observe or take in who they are as a person. And in the real world, people have sort of replaced a lot of, let's say, real relationships with just quick conversations, and they sort of think they can sort of know a person from that. While if you want life, you need involvement. It takes a long time, and it's gonna be as when you're communicating with humans, you need to communicate to it as it is a human being. And it's really interesting to see this. So you can take this a lot in yeah, I mean, especially in the real world, like people have replaced relationships so much with just surface layer stuff. So they never really are talking about, like, they're only concerned about survival, like the intellect tool. They're never talking about anything else. humans basically have complicated savagery. So back in the days, you spear a person, very simple savagery. Now with economy, people have sort of complicated their savagery, and it's like when people are many times meeting other people, the first thing they want to do is sort of dissect them. They just want to do the intellect tool, where yeah, I mean, they don't have that base layer of looking at a person as a human being, but it almost has become this object. And what can the intellect do? I mean, it can only dissect a person, right? So when they think they know, let's say, a person, like they actually have to be involved then. Like they really have to be there. Like they have to be present. And oh my god. So I didn't think it would be this windy in here. So yeah, I mean, as you get more knowledge about the world and about how you start to learn more about how people identify with stuff, and you sort of see how ignorant you are. Many times when people already come up to you and they talk about something, you almost already know what you're going to talk about. And you know, like, you know where they're coming from. You know what they're going to talk about, basically. But you also know that to explain these new concepts, I mean, it takes so much time, right? It takes so much time, and then people want to hear something super quick. And yeah, I mean, it's really interesting when you gain more knowledge, how I mean, you become so much aware about, like, when you understand how the mind works, like, you basically know what the person gonna ask, you know the whole story, basically. And you see the limitations of the intellect. Like, because you know that, I mean, it's like, it cannot know life. And you can also see how it's easy for a person to get into a box where they can only think in the intellect box, which I mean, you see in like a global world, you see how you sort of need a new generation which sort of looks at what are they identifying with, and because what they basically identify with, that's going to decide so much how they're looking at the world, what kind of decisions they're doing. And this geek generation with new technology, they're looking at how they can transform their foundation. And they sort of see that humans need to be transformed. Humans don't need to change their behavior, they need to basically be transformed. You basically need a no-nonsense world in many ways, which means you need a lot of transparency. You need people to all have access to the same sort of information. You need proof of brain systems, and people practice it daily, basically. And then you can get to a mutual understanding. So that's what I want to talk a little bit about today. And yeah, I mean, it's really interesting because you see how all these systems, it can be anything, like a belief system, or I don't know, like systems that humans have built to try to sort of create order. And you can see like there's a lot of flaws in those systems, how they probably gonna collapse rather fast when you really start to dive deeper into, I mean, is this really based on anything, or is it just where people make agreements, but it's like it was just something like when people are raising the intellect to the sky, and then you start to see, oh, that's not really, oh, we cannot really know life. I mean, that's just interesting. So yeah, but the most annoying thing is when people are coming at a person as, I mean, when they're just using the intellect tool, many times they can't even see a person. And that's strange. So you sort of see you sort of see the importance of a decentralized world, because you really see it, especially with all these power games and stuff like that that people are doing, and they're really doing a lot of them in the world. And yeah, so that's what I wanted to talk a little bit about. As I said, I mean, the most fascinating thing about technology is how it makes it so no like single individual can decide like how big or small you are, because the technology basically it does remove a lot of nonsense. Not like you're ever gonna get perfect systems, but so much nonsense that is basically no longer needed. And humans really gonna have to sort of re-look at systems and how they're doing things, and basically learn to appreciate other humans and understand humans, and also invest a lot of time and energy into real human beings and actually understand what actually a human is and the possibility a human being is. Yeah, that's what I want to talk a little bit about today. Have a great day, DTube and Steam Blockchain.